EAGLES, Eagles.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Lehocky Postgame Show. It was a night that started out shaky quarterback, namely DeAndre Swift, who came off the mat for 175 yards, a career high. Welcome to the Lehocky Eagles postgame show, and I'm Mike Missinelli, and with my cohorts Derek Gunn, Seth Joyner, and Kayla Santiago. Well, guys, what do you think after tonight? They're 2-0, but they needed the rush to get them through this game, and I thought it was actually a pretty good adjustment to go to it since they were stumbling in other areas.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I got to ask all of you guys a question here. Are you excited and happy that they won, or are you more relieved? Because I'm in a relieved category because it was two similar games. You know, they built this lead, and the Vikings were their own worst enemies in this game tonight, but then they let the Vikings creep back into the game. I mean, how do you guys feel about this one?
It's not a sense of relief for me because when you consider all the injuries that they have,
yes,
you know, you kind of expect that on the defensive side of the ball, at least,
right,
that they're going to surrender some points. The miscommunication, so on and so forth. I'm concerned. I mean, if I don't see, you know, they've got 10 days off before they play the next game. If I don't see some improvement and I don't begin to see the offense find its stride, then I'm going to be really, really concerned about where the offense is heading, because at the end of the day, they started off slow last year, and then they hit their stride.
Yep.
So if they don't hit their stride and some things don't change, and I don't see the Jalen Hurts, at least 75% of the Jalen Hurts that we saw last year, I'm going to begin to wonder, you know, about this change at offensive coordinator and the plays that are being called. And one or two more outings like this, and I get the sense that Nick Sirianni is going to start taking over the play call.
I agree 100%.
It's more relief. I agree with you, Derek, that it's more relief than pride at this point. But they at least had something to go to bail them out. Now, that with the obligatory Kirk Cousins turnover machine was enough to get them by tonight. And let's not forget there was a major swing on the play to Justin Jefferson that got him a touchback when it looked like the Vikings should have scored on that drive and got to the goal line on that play. That was a monster turnaround in this game.
Well, I think an even bigger turnaround was the punt return, a big punt return by Minnesota, and the guy fumbles deep inside the Eagles' territory. And like I said off the top, the Vikings were their own worst enemy. Those two scenarios were potentially 14 points, you know. But the bottom line is they turned the ball over, and the Eagles capitalized on those situations. Name of the game is get the W any way, shape, or form. And, you know, like I said, you know, I'm relieved they won these games, but I'm seeing some patterns in two games here. And as Seth said, if you don't see a change, you have extended time off now to work on some things. I'm pretty sure James Bradbury will be back out of concussion protocol. That will be a big help. But watching these young kids play in the back end tonight was like watching the Keystone Cops.
Listen, see, to me, it's a communication problem.
Yes.
And that's it. It wasn't lack of effort. It wasn't, you know, that they were inefficient at doing what they needed to do. You could tell that the communication wasn't there. Listen, D-Gun, we've been covering the Eagles for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And at the cornerback position, they've always had the piecemeal. We tried to sign free agents, huge contracts, didn't work out. We're always bringing in somebody else's people. We got a young core of corners and safeties right now that I feel like with experience and time, they're going to grow. You know, so I'm not as down on the way that the young guys played so much more as I am as it being a situation that they just got to grow. I feel really, really, really good about the young core guys because they flashed and showed that, hey, the effort's there, the want to is there, They just got to learn how to play at this level, okay? And when you only got one veteran on the field, the communication suffers.
Yeah.
I mean, Darius Slay is the only veteran that was on the field, and you got all these young guys around him, and nobody's talking. They all got crackers and peanut butter in their mouth, and ain't nobody's talking.
Yeah, Kayla, how are we feeling about this tonight?
I'm relieved as well. I do have to agree with you guys. I think right now Jalen Hurts, I don't know if it's as much about him or as much as the play calling, but clearly they're not on the same page. You talk about communication, and I think offensively the communication is really off, but you don't put all the blame on the offensive coordinator because Jalen Hurts definitely is missing his spots. I don't love the runs that he's putting his body in to get hurt. I think that needs to go. You have DeAndre Swift. Kenny Gainwell should be back. Hopefully we'll be back, and then you can kind of start running the ball once more. But I'm relieved at this point. I think that they have a lot of work to do. I think the front four for the defense is fine. The secondary is young. I think they'll be okay. Honestly, guys, I went into this game worrying about the defense. I come out of it worrying about the offense.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, and listen, and Seth, I know that you were very concerned early in the game. You put a tweet out that I thought was pretty poignant about Hurts just not being, I don't know, indoctrinated enough like he was last year. What did you see early on with him?
Listen, when you have the kind of success that this offense had last year, the thing that you do is you go into this year thinking that everything is going to be the same, that you're going to be able to operate in the same manner. Well, listen, you went to the Super Bowl last year. All the teams in the league understand what you're trying to do. Bill Belichick has given the rest of the league a blueprint. Brian Flores tonight took a page out of that and created his own, and other teams are going to look at it, okay? Now,
And that was coming after him, basically.
You want to force it's. I keep trying to tell people, pressure makes bust pipes, man. When you pressure a quarterback, I don't care how cerebral they are, I don't care how good they are. I don't care if you're talking about Joe Montana or you're talking about Tom Brady. If you can put pressure on them, then you can affect how they play the game and the decisions that they make quick, fast, in a hurry. So what they're doing is they're really putting Jalen in the mixer because everything they do is quick and fast. When he goes read option, they're not giving him time to pull the ball and make multiple decisions. They're making him make decisions right now because they're conversion and they're coming at him right now. And he's uncomfortable because he can't operate the way he wants to. He can't do the things the way he wanted to, the way he's done things last year. So when you get a quarterback that gets frustrated like that, they start making decisions. You're speeding up their clock, and they start making mistakes.
Yeah, what your tweet was, I've seen a level of impatience that I've seen Hurts that I've never seen before. He's forcing things, and that's exactly what he was doing in the first half.
And I believe that that's why they went so heavy to the run. You got to take the pressure off of him. You know, when things aren't working, you can't continue to keep doing the same thing trying to get a different result. If you can run the ball, you got the best offensive line in pro football. Run the damn ball, and then once you run the ball, now you can begin to get some of the things you want. But to just drop back and drop back and drop back and think that you're going to get what you want when teams have got a remedy for what you're trying to do and they're taking away your weapons on the peripheral, just run the ball. If they just run the ball, they'll be fine. But today's football is we want to throw it early, get a lead, and then run the clock out.
Yeah, interesting. Last week, DeAndre Swift completely missing in action. We're wondering, well, did they not believe in him? They had to unleash him today because obviously Kenny Gainwell was not going to play, and he looked energized. I mean, he looked quick. He got to the outside. He even ran between the tackles pretty well. The Vikings had closed to within 27-21 in the fourth quarter, but the Eagles then had a put-away drive, and DeAndre Swift with a 43-yard gallop, and then he pushed it in from three to kind of put him ahead 34-21. And at that point, it was unlikely the Vikings were going to come back from that. So that was the key drive. What did you think of him tonight,
Mike?
Guys,
you know what?
Loved it.
Quick, you know what DeAndre Swift was tonight? DeAndre Swift. This was to let the Eagles know what they have.
Yeah.
Don't you ever have me dressed and sit me over on the sideline and give me 5 plays.
And
Don't
2
ever
touches.
do it again, okay? So
touches
now
again.
he put the coaching staff on notice. That's what that was today.
The thing I really like about DeAndre Swift is the same DeAndre Swift we saw in Detroit, is his patience behind the line of scrimmage. He has that little stutter step like a Le'Veon Bell, but he has much more acceleration than a Le'Veon Bell. He waits and lets his offensive lineman get into position, and then he bursts through a seam. You know, and the way that offensive line manhandled Minnesota's defensive front, I was surprised the Vikings never came out of their 5 DB situation for the most part in this game. They kept going, but they were more concerned with the Eagles beating them over the top than they were with the running game. And in a game of chess, you got to mix and match. And Brian Flores, I was a little bit surprised he didn't mix and match a lot more. He kept saying with the 3 and 4 man front, they kept chewing them up for 8, 10, 12 yards of rush. And that was the difference in the ball game. Look at the time of possession in this game. Sometimes you got to cheat. You got to gamble. That's what football is. Brian Flores was not willing to gamble, and it cost him and the Vikings in a lot of ways tonight.
Well, the one time he gambled,
He got burnt.
DeAndre Smith made him pay.
Yeah.
So a lot of times all it takes is one time,
Right.
and coaches back off.
Yeah.
You know, especially you got young guys out there and you're trying to get them in the right place in the right situation. You know, that I just know that, you know, when you play aggressive, you're more apt to have success than if you play passive.
DeAndre Swift, of course, great homecoming kid from St. Joe Prep. But let's go back to the first half, because it looked like the Vikings had the opportunity to take control of this game. They turned it over 3 times early on in the first half, shot themselves in the foot a couple times. The punt return fumble that D. Gunn mentioned, and then the Madison had fumbled earlier from the line of scrimmage, and then Jefferson on touchback. Let's look at this play again, guys. He tried to stretch it out a little bit. And Terrell Evans made a good play to jostle him a little bit. The ball comes loose, and we were looking at it. The ball goes, to explain it, the ball goes over the pylon, which means it's going to be a touchback. If it goes in before the pylon, the Vikings would get the ball down. So it was a really fortunate break for the Eagles there.
I think they had a lot of fortunate breaks tonight, if I'm going to be honest with you, and I think that's one thing that helped the Eagles win this game. Normal time, Justin Jefferson doesn't do that. I was shocked when I saw that, actually, and it was a huge momentum boost for the Philadelphia Eagles. But you're not going to face teams like that every single week. I understand it's only week 2, but the Vikings' mishaps helped out the Eagles. If the Vikings clean it up a little bit more, I think Minnesota might take that game.
The Eagles, by the way, 14 pass. You take away the long one to Devontae Smith early in that game. The Eagles had 14 pass plays that accounted for 22 yards. So it wasn't like they were burning the Vikings in coverage. And then you get to the third quarter, the Vikings get the ball first. Cousins sacks, gets fumbles after a sweat hit, and then Fletcher Cox recovered at the 7th-4 turnover. Swift gets to the goal line, and then they get that sneak that is unstoppable to put them up 20-7, and then the 63-yard bomb. It's 27-7. It looks like they're in pretty much control, but it wasn't until they committed to the run that they really solidified this game. D.
Well, whether it was Sirianni or Brian Johnson, I am so glad they finally identified they could win the war of attrition in the trenches, because that was the big difference in this game, controlling the clock. Eagles in the final analysis had the ball for almost 40 minutes compared to the Vikings a little over 20 minutes.
48 rushes for 259 tonight.
That's all you need to know. When things were getting a little hairy for them, what did they do? Go to the ground attack. Dared the Vikings to stop them, and the Vikings couldn't. That's why the Eagles arguably have the best offensive line in the National Football League. When they get that consistent push like that, anybody can run behind that offensive line. And look at what Swift did tonight, basically in his expanded role with his Eagles offense. I mean, a career high tonight rushing. He never came close to that when he was in Detroit.
Seth, we talked about coming into this game. We talked about how the Eagles were going to be depleted in the middle of the field, and that was going to hurt them. With the linebacker situation, the safety situation. Were you surprised the Vikings didn't attack the middle as much as like we thought they would?
Yeah, I was, but I think the linebackers really played a much better game this game than they did the last game. I get the sense that, you can talk about Cunningham and you could talk about Morrow, but those guys brought more speed on the inside and a much better awareness of how to deal with that. I was really surprised at what you didn't see. Like the first play of the game, or the second play of the game, I think it was, Cousins hits Jefferson on a crossing route across the field. Now, I was shocked that we didn't see that anymore. What I really expected for Minnesota to do was to line him up in the slot, to force the Eagles to cover him differently, and then use him across the field, in zone coverage matched up against the linebackers. They didn't really do a whole lot of that. It was just, you could tell it was a point of emphasis. And it was even much better before Devontae Maddox got injured and left the game, when you had your full complement almost, on the inside between the linebackers and the slot guy. But I want to go back to, you guys were just talking about the Eagles were fortunate about how things turned out. See, I don't believe in that, because I think that when you talk about turnovers are something that you force, okay? They're not something that Minnesota just said, here's the ball, okay? Every single turnover that they got was forced by the Philadelphia Eagles. And when you forced 4 turnovers, 9 times out of 10, you're going to win that game. So while Minnesota was in place to make some things happen, Terrell Edmonds keeps him from stretching the ball out, because if that ball stays in his hands and he reaches it where he reached it, that's a touchdown. But just a hit on the wrist is enough to make that ball come loose. Boom. Eagles get the ball. It's a turnover. The Josh Sweat strip sack, he made it happen. All of those 4 turnovers on the punt early in the game. They run down there. Devontae Maddox hits the guy. Boom, fumble. Okay? Those are things that you create. And the problem is, when you don't create them and we sit here and we talk about them, it's like, oh, how come they can't create turnovers? There's no turnovers. The Eagles' defense and special team, there's no turnovers. Well, guess what? They're creating them at an alarming rate right now. And that's one of the main reasons why they're winning, while this offense tries to find its footing and tries to figure it out.
At the end, in the fourth quarter, there were a couple plays that you alluded to, the confusion in the defensive secondary. KJ Osborne was wide open on a play, breakdown of communication there. And then Jefferson goes in motion, and nobody really followed him. And he runs the pattern, and the Slay was late on it. I'm like, who's at fault there? How does that happen?
Well, Slay's the older statesman back there. He has to yell out something. And then you can see the whole secondary is like looking around like who's supposed to be where and what. And it costs them. Once the ball is snapped, you have to make a decision in a fraction of a second. And a lot of times the DBs did not. They're still guessing as to where they're supposed to be, what zone they're supposed to be in, who they're supposed to be covering. Now, if the Vikings offense was a little bit more fluid, they could have really burned them on it. But because the Eagles were able to get pressure up front on Cousins and make him make some decisions before he really wanted to, that really saved the back end of that defense in a lot of ways.
Communication begins way before the play, okay? You have to be talking, because if you're studying film and all of those defensive backs are sitting in the same meeting and having the coaches talking to all of them, whether you're a starter or whether you're a backup, because you're one play away from being a starter. You understand what I'm saying? So the communication starts way ahead of time, okay? There's alerts that have to happen. So if I'm playing with guys and I understand what could possibly happen, if this guy can motion or this guy can shift, hey, if he moves, this is what we're going to do, okay? If he motions, pass him off. When we drop in zone, if I get a crosser, I'll let you know he's coming. And more likely than not, if there's one crossing, one leaving, another one's coming. You have to communicate those things in the meeting, in the walkthrough, in practice, because if you don't do it there, you're damn sure not going to do it in the game. And that's what you saw in the game tonight. The guy motioned down, Darius Slay bumped down to his guy. He's assuming that the young guy knows that if he goes in motion, he got to go with him. I mean, the best wide receiver in football goes in motion and nobody goes with him? The safeties don't rotate?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
That looked pretty bad. Kayla, I know you've been following social media tonight, and there are a lot of Eagle fans that are just really disgruntled about their offense and the play calling. And I mean, Brian Johnson is kind of under the lamp right now. What are people out there saying about this offense? It just doesn't look the same as it did last year. So should we be freaking out after 2 games?
I don't think freaking out after 2 games is the answer right now. You do have to remember it was a really short turnaround. Now, I think in week 3, if you're still seeing the same thing, especially from Jalen Hurts, then it's a worry. But I want to go back to when A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts were on the sideline talking to each other, and everybody clipped that little shot and said they're arguing, stuff is going wrong, how people love to go on Twitter and social media and talk about that. And what did Jalen Hurts do? He went to A.J. Brown twice after that. So you can see that he's trying to do a little bit better, and he's trying to not take that as criticism, but push him to be better on the field. I only hope that can elevate Jalen Hurts' game as we go into week 3. Now, you guys mentioned before that maybe Nick Sirianni takes over the play calling at some point. Maybe that's what it comes down to. Are Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts not on the same page? That's what it looks like, but I'm not hitting the panic button right now. Remember, Jalen Hurts was the runner-up for MVP a season ago.
I don't like what I saw out of A.J. Brown tonight. I just don't like it, okay? Because when you were lighting it up last year and you were on fire last year in week 1 and Devontae Smith wasn't getting any balls and Dallas Goedert wasn't getting any balls, was they bitching and complaining? No, okay? You're 2-0 and you're on the sideline complaining because you're not getting any targets. Shut your mouth and just play.
And it threw him out of whack, actually, because Hurts did intentionally try to appease him.
Listen,
and
multiple times.
The first play after the incident on the sideline, he went right to him. I was like, and what did I say? He's going to throw it to him. And what does A.J. Brown do? Instead of coming back to get the ball, the DB, he lets the DB knock it down. If he comes back and get the ball, he's got another catch. But he's trying to turn it up before he catches it so he can make a play. Listen, if they're going to win, they got to win the same way they won before. And A.J. Brown knows better than to be on the sideline. You got 1,000 cameras all over the place. And that's the worst look that the Eagles could have is that A.J. Brown is disgruntled and pissed off because he's not getting the ball.
Well, in the year plus that we've gotten to know A.J., that was definitely uncharacteristic of him. And if you go back to this summer, when somebody asked him about getting the ball and being the primary target, he says, I don't ever want to be a disruptive factor, and it's not about me. But tonight, and again, let's wait and see what A.J. says about it, what Jalen says about it, what Nick Sirianni. Now, Nick Sirianni is going to tell you most of that stuff we just keep in-house. But you know it's going to leak out eventually in terms of what was said, maybe what's not said. We're going to sit here and speculate, but it didn't look good. And we see this a lot of times on other NFL teams, and we don't see this on the Eagles. Even when things are going bad, you don't see guys in each other's faces. Think about this over the last few years. Whether it's going good or bad, you don't see players in each other's faces and coaches actually getting into the mix as well. I can understand AJ's frustration, but the bigger picture is, dude, whether you get the ball or not, you're being paid handsomely for it. And you know what? Some nights it's about somebody else other than you. You should know that. You've been in the game long enough to understand that.
Let's talk about the defense a little bit. Now, I know, Seth, I mean, the young fellas in the middle are playing well. They're getting some pressure from the middle. Sweat played very well tonight, but they're not getting anything from the left side. Hassan Reddick has kind of been invisible, and you could only think that thumb is still really bothering him, that he doesn't have the leverage to get there. How did you assess their defensive front tonight?
Well, I thought they would be much more dominant. You know, you could see the Minnesota Vikings, their protection was really, designed to clog up the middle. So early on, they got pressure from the defensive tackles, but as the game went on, they just kind of stepped down and tried to close everything off and bunch everything up in the middle. I thought Sweat had a hell of a game. They played him at outside backer. They played him at defensive end. They kicked him down to defensive tackle in certain situations. Came up with the big play, the strip sack that was absolutely huge in the second half. But they need somebody else to step up. I'm sick and tired of watching Derek Barnett chase every play that goes away from him and leave. It's almost like they game plan him now. Oh, we can bootleg anytime number 96 is in the game because anything that goes away from him, he's chasing down the line, and here the quarterback comes back the other way. Go up the field like Josh Sweat. I mean, how is it that two players that play the same position could play so differently? But they need some help on the outside because you can't just rely on the young guys to keep stepping up every single game in the middle.
And we haven't seen Nolan Smith
Not
at
much.
all this
Not
year.
Been
much.
very quiet.
Which is interesting.
Where
Very
is
quiet.
He? Was he active today or was he inactive?
He was active.
He was active.
Yeah.
Did you see him play?
No,
He played
I didn't
7
see him out
snaps.
there.
I think
He
I
played
saw
7
him
snaps.
once.
He played 7
All right, so
snaps last game.
Derek,
and was
do we have to
ineffective
worry
this
about Hassan Reddick at this point? I mean, what do you think?
Anytime you're playing with a repaired thumb, he's not going to be as explosive as he is because you've got to use your hands to get leverage on the shoulder pass of these big offensive tackles. Now, to what degree is that thumb bothering him remains to be seen because did you notice tonight, normally he plays on the left side. They moved him around to the right side. Number one, Darrisaw went down.
His right thumb.
Yeah, and then the backup right tackle went down as well. So they were doing everything possibly they could to get him some type of advantage. It still wasn't working. So I wonder, even if you deaden that thing, just how much that thumb is really affecting him right now.
Well, you need to use your hand, your whole hand, not 4 fingers, the whole hand, because the thumb is what you
It's your
use for leverage.
Yeah.
And if he can't use that hand, I mean, you might as well he's got it covered up, and he's out there with a fist. He can't pull, he can't grab, he can't move. So he's basically out there playing with one hand.
That's not good. Vance Joseph is a defensive coordinator who blitzes a lot. Last week, he sent 5 or more 18 times in that game against Tampa Bay. So we knew he was going to blitz a lot today. But this pressure on Hurts seems to now be the template on what you have to do to him. So how does he break out of this?
I don't know so much that it's him breaking out of it as it is, the Eagles making the adjustment.
But what do they need to do?
Well, listen, if they're going to blitz you like this and you don't have the numbers to stop it, then that means that you have to go to max protection, okay? And if you're going to go to max protection, then that means you're running 2-man routes, 3-man routes at the most, okay? At the most. Or you go delay where the tight end stays, he blocks, then he releases. But you got to do something to make Hurts comfortable in the pocket. You can't just keep spreading out the offense, and they're bringing more guys than you can pick up, and you think that he's going to have time. They're rushing and speeding him up, so he can't even get through his progression the way he needs to in order to make the plays that he needs to because he's being rushed. So just go to a max protection, okay, if you really want to pass the ball and rely on wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 1A to make plays on the outside.
All right, listen, if you're looking to hire right now in the IT, engineering, manufacturing, or technology fields, all you got to do is contact Gary Kane and his team at Kane Partners Staffing Solutions. Here's how you can connect.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
I'm Mike Missinelli. A little bit, we're going to join, John McMullen will join us live from Lincoln Financial Field. But right now, Mark Farzetta joins us on the set. Farzy with the player you can bank on, presented by First Trust Bank. What do we have today, Farz?
I mean, how do you not choose a guy like DeAndre Swift going out there and making sure he got you the yards? Look, I understand that it's the big sexy. Okay, it's the big sexy right there when you talk about the running back actually going out there and getting the yards. But you could easily go with the offensive line here, because the minute they started trusting that offensive line, the minute Brian Johnson decided that it wasn't working for whatever reason in the passing game, it was going to work in the ground game. And that's where they started really dominating this football game, when they just decided in that second quarter, we're going to run the ball down their throat. And that's exactly what they did. They had the big boys up front making that push, and DeAndre Swift was having a lot of fun being able to run through huge gaping holes in that offensive line.
Did you see Lane Johnson? DeAndre Swift ripped off a run, and Lane Johnson was looking over the sideline like, keep rolling them, baby. Just keep rolling them.
He's done that before.
Oh, yeah.
He did that back with Doug Peterson when he felt like they were abandoning the run, and they know they can get that push up front consistently, and he did it again today.
You know, it was an old-school drive, by the way. 16 plays. 13 were runs on that drive to make it 10-7. That's called grinding it up a little bit. You don't see that very much.
There's not an offensive line out there that doesn't want to run the football, because they know if they can dominate that way, when they turn around and have to or want to run the ball, it's a lot easier for them to pass block.
Seth, let's call that old school smash mouth football back from the 70s and 80s. You know, run left, run right, run middle. And if they can't stop you, keep running the clock, man. That's a thing of beauty. And I know Farzy gives the player of the game to DeAndre Swift, and I can't argue against that. But I got to start with the big dudes up front, man, because some of the holes they opened up in this game tonight were big enough to drive a Cadillac through.
And they saved the team today.
And
they absolutely. I mean, look, all the turnovers that were created by the defense and by special teams of all units was great. But the consistency of this team. It's such a great thing when you look at this Philadelphia Eagles team. Whenever they have struggles, to be able to default to an offensive line that people can't blow up, that they do the blowing up and make those holes for their running back, no matter who it is. I mean, Rashad Penny, I'll say this, left a lot to be desired. You can understand why he was inactive in week one after watching him today. But DeAndre Swift, man, when you combine that speed and being able to get to the line of scrimmage as quickly as he was able to do tonight, that was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not sure they have much of Rashad Penny, but there was a sighting of him today. Conversely, the Minnesota Vikings rushed the ball 9 times for 28 yards. So we knew what we were going to get from Kirk Cousins. 31 completions for Kirk Cousins. Jefferson, 11 for 159, 13 targets. Jordan Addison, 72 yards on 3 catches. And they got the ball to Hawkinson 7 times, but only for 66 yards. He didn't really burn them that bad. And KJ Osborne had 3 completions for 34 yards for the Minnesota Vikings. But listen, let's face it, the Eagles have beaten now 2 teams that are not in their class, right? So this is what you're supposed to do in the NFL. You're supposed to take care of those teams that you know you're better than. So what are we worried about exactly when they get to a good team that they won't have enough stuff, especially with the way the quarterback is playing right now?
Well, I feel if they get to a better team and they continue to play like this, it's not going to look good for this team. You know, they've capitalized on a couple of teams that are weak in certain areas. When it came to the New England Patriots, the Patriots don't have many offensive weapons outside of Ramondre Stevenson and, of course, Zeke Elliott. When you look at this Vikings team, they have a good passing offense. They don't have any running game. They let Dalvin Cook go. Look at the pedestrian-like running back. Madison's a good banger between the tackle. His role when Dalvin Cook was there was to soften up the defense for Dalvin Cook to hit the home run. You don't have a Dalvin Cook in that offense now. And defensively, Brian Flores doesn't have a lot to work with. You know, they gave it their best shot. He is a true disciple of Bill Belichick, but he doesn't have the personnel on the back end that the Patriots had to play the kind of scheme that they wanted to play more efficiently. So the Eagles basically, although their game was flawed in both games, they played them well enough to win and not lose.
And now they get kind of a mini bye here to work on some things. So what do you think these next few days entail for Nick Sirianni and the boys?
Listen, it's a mini bye. You know, you got to look at what you're doing. You got to look at how teams are playing you, and you got to come up with a remedy. And you got to come up with a way to exploit the defense when they put themselves in certain situations to be exploited. Like, I'm telling you right now, that 63-yard touchdown pass to Devontae Smith, that defense looked nothing. It didn't look any different than anything that they had shown them all game. You know what the difference is? Jalen Hurts identified by the alignment of the safety on that side that they were in man-to-man coverage and decided to attack that side. Okay,
that's the best play he made all game.
Absolutely.
There was somebody in his face. He stayed in there and delivered it.
Absolutely, but he has to do more of that, you know. And the problem is when you're not sure what you're seeing, that you don't know what to do with it, okay? And Bill Belichick is a master of that. Brian Flores learned how to do the same thing, you know, to a certain extent. They had much more success against what Hurts at least did, much more success against what he was seeing today than he did last week. Is that a progression? I don't know. I just don't know for sure. But I know that Brian Flores is an aggressive style coach. He's even more aggressive than Bill Belichick. From a blitzing standpoint, if you go back and you look at when he was, you know, in Miami running the Dolphins, I mean, there were times they played more zero coverage at that time than any other team, you know, but he had the horses to do it. But they understand that I'm bringing pressure, and I'm bringing guys from a myriad of different places to force Jalen Hurts to make quick decisions. The other thing I'm doing is I'm going to line guys up, and I'm going to move guys around. I'm going to disguise so he doesn't get a pre-snap read of where to go with the ball right now. And once he snapped the ball, you got one safety running back, another one running over here. You know, this guy dropping, this guy, you know, coming up. So it's hard for a quarterback to recognize and understand all of that until he's seen it.
So are they changing it up, these defenses, this year against him? Or because it seemed like he made those reads last year?
Because most teams give you a pre-snap read. There's only so much that you can disguise, you know. But when you got safeties that are playing halves and they're lined up at 8 yards, and on the snap of the ball, they're getting back, you know, to their halves coverage. Now that presents a problem because he thinks that, you know, they're in something else, but they're in halves coverage, and they go from a look of man coverage, like they're going to come down and blitz, to all of a sudden everybody drops out, both safeties got halves, and they're playing a cover two.
I tell you what's going to happen, Seth. The better defenses they're going to face this year are going to take a combination of everything that they've seen from both New England and Minnesota and utilize it. They're going to add to what they already do extremely well and add that. And I'm picking up on something that you said earlier when you said, like, Jalen is seeing ghosts right now. And if the word gets out that you can confuse him compared to the fact that he was near flawless most of last season, then it's on Nick Sirianni and Brian Flores to spend additional time with him, as good of an athlete as he is, to spend additional time with him in the film room behind closed doors to help him see some of these things that he hasn't been able to see the first couple of games.
I will continue to say this, D-Gun. I think the Eagles need to get much better, you know, And Mike asked, so what do they do with these 10 days? I think they need to work on the timing of their screen game. They've got to implement a screen game to the running back to make it look like a screen game. They got to do a better job of their tight end screens to Goddard. They must have ran 2 or 3 screens to Goddard tonight for like 2 or 3 yards. That shouldn't happen with a guy that athletic.
And they didn't run it with Swift. They didn't run a screen with
But
Swift,
that's
right?
my whole point.
Yeah.
Where's the screen game against a team that's overly aggressive at you? Because the best way to deal with aggressive teams, the best way to slow them down, hit them with a screen. You hit them with a screen, that slows all the pass rush down because guys have got to pay attention to it. Now, if you're running the ball the way they ran tonight, and then you turn around and throw a little screen game in it, now you're cooking with gas. But they've got to kind of figure some things out and come up with some solutions with this little mini bye that they got, because they can't, once they get into the meat of their schedule and start playing better football teams than the last 2 that they played, they're not going to survive playing like this.
I'll tell you the most important thing they have to do between now and then is get healthier. Bradbury is coming back from that concussion. We don't know the status of Avonte Maddox with that shoulder. We know Nakobe Dean is going to miss at least 3 more games before he's ready to go. So they've got some holes to fill.
Well, and Maddox just can't stay healthy. I mean, it's a sin that he can't stay healthy.
He plays with reckless abandon, and it cost him in a lot of ways.
And he's a tiny guy. So far as if you're assessing this team right now, I think I'm in a kind of a holding pattern at this point, because they've won 2 games and good teams.
So you're relieved, like I said.
I guess I'm relieved. I'm not thinking that they're in trouble by any means, but they certainly haven't been that impressive. But again, they're beating teams that they're better than, and they should do that.
Yeah, Mike, no. All right, they're 2-0. We feel great about them being 2-0, but we feel even better about correcting the mistakes over the next 11 days. You have the next 2 Sundays off, which is great. I agree with Seth. I agree with Gunnar. And Mike, I agree with you. You got to get back to the drawing board when it comes to this offense. You got to make sure that Brian Johnson is on the same page as Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts is going to be able to diagnose whatever they're throwing in front of him. It gets said every single time something like this happens. The league looks like over these first 2 games with Brian Flores and Bill Belichick that they have adjusted to Jalen Hurts. Now Jalen Hurts with his new offensive coordinator and play caller have to adjust to what the league is doing to him. I got confidence they'll be able to do that. We'll go back to the mini bye. They'll have an opportunity to do it coming up against a weak team on a Monday Night Football game against the Buccaneers.
All right, let's take another break. Kayla will be back with the Diamond Debate, and John McMullen will join us a little later in the program live from Lincoln Financial Field. It is the Pond Lehocky Eagles postgame show live from Ocean Casino, and we're back after this.
Welcome to Pond Lehocky, the largest workers'
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Game show live at Ocean Casino. You're watching us on JAKIB Media YouTube channel, also 6abc.com. It is time now for the Kayla Diamond Debate. She's got some bling on tonight. Kayla, how we feeling tonight, and what's the bling going on?
Well, the bling's making me feel good, and it's hopefully good luck to the Eagles for the rest of the season. You guys can see this bracelet that everybody had trouble opening. Actually, Seth was able to help me out a little bit with this one. It was very, very difficult. But right here, it's shining bright for the talent that the Eagles have that hopefully shines bright for the rest of the season. Then you can see right here the earrings. They have clovers on them, which is also giving good luck to Philadelphia throughout the year. Following that, it's the depth of the necklaces right here, the depth of the Eagles offense, but we haven't really seen that throughout the season so far. A glimpse of it at running back here tonight, but everybody wants to see it throughout the rest of the weeks of the season. And talking about running backs, guys, we saw a fantastic showing by DeAndre Swift. Do you think he has consideration for running back one? Do you think they go between him and Gainwell? What does it look like for that, Seth? I'll start with you.
I think that, what's happened with DeAndre Swift is he's let them know that, hey, I can be a force for this football team. That you guys ignored me all last week. I didn't get much playing time. You brought me here, to be an integral part of the 1-2 punch. And I'm telling you, I know that guy in his mind was like, this is going to be my chance tonight. Not only am I going to show the rest of the NFL how good of a player I am, but I'm going to show the Philadelphia Eagles what a mistake they made in not incorporating me in the offense last week. And, I think they now know, because maybe they didn't know D-Gun because of training camp and him having a limited amount of time playing in the preseason, but now they know what they have.
I think they knew, Seth, but I think they were so committed to Gainwell before this game tonight that it had to take an injury basically to unleash a DeAndre Swift. When you look at his career historically, number one, he's never played a full season. He's missed 2 to 3 games a season. Okay, so he's got that minor knock on him, but you look at the bigger picture, he's averaged almost 6 yards a carry for his entire young NFL career. So what does he do in an expanded role tonight? He gets 28 carries. Once they identify that the Vikings can't stop him, he racks up a career-high 175 yards. I think moving forward, even when Gainwell is healthy, DeAndre Swift is now your number 1 running back, and Kenneth Gainwell comes in as the alternate back.
Wow.
Boston Scott just gets his touches when he can.
I'm not so sure about that.
I am.
You
see where that man ran that ball tonight?
Listen, if it's up to me, it's a no-brainer. But they love themselves some Kenny Gainwell.
I understand that.
So I think that DeAndre Swift now has a chance to really seize the job.
Yes.
And so even Gainwell's not going to. I don't know. He'll probably heal up. Maybe he'll play next week and get the same amount of carries, and they'll use him as the number 1 back. But if they don't, Swift's got another game to prove it, and then they can't go away from him. But they love themselves some Gainwell.
Well, I think what it is too. Listen, the Eagles are notorious for, living and dying with their players that they draft more often than not. They just don't want to give up on certain players. I mean, how long? I can't remember his name. He was so awful. The wide receiver we drafted out of Stanford.
J.J. Arcega-Whiteside?
Oh,
yeah.
How long did we keep him on the roster? When it was
way too long. Way too long.
When it was clear that everybody could see that he couldn't play dead. But we kept him on the roster for what, 3-4 years? Move on already.
Whatever happened to him? Where is he now?
Well, he got cut by Atlanta. He was down in Atlanta and got cut.
So he's out of football?
So he's out of football right now.
That's a shock.
They did the same thing with Jalen Rager. They kept him too long.
But that's my point. So
never should have drafted him.
The Eagles drafted. They drafted Kenneth Gainwell, and they made the decision to move on from Miles Sanders because they didn't want to pay him, and they made the decision that this guy's going to be our guy. Now, he still very well might be our guy, but I can tell you right now that DeAndre Swift is going to put – I said at the beginning of the year, you got these running backs, and 9 times out of 10, they're not going to get any more than 15, 16 carries a game. He got those carries tonight out of necessity because they know they were getting nothing out of Rashad Penny, okay? But if Gainwell is healthy, he probably gets half of those carries, and Gainwell gets the other half.
I think it'll be a split situation. I don't think that DeAndre Swift's going to be their bell cow, their Miles Sanders type of running
that
back.
Word. There ain't no such thing as a bell cow.
Well, whatever. I don't even know what it means.
I
don't even know what bell cow means, but I threw it out there anyway. But yeah, you're right. I think that they will kind of split these running backs. They found out Rashad Penny, and the reason why they must see something in practice because he wasn't going to get a shot. They threw him in for
a breather.
At the end there, a few touches.
Shot, I think
not every system suits every player.
That's right.
And Rashad Penny is just a straight downhill, not even a one cut and go. He's just straight downhill. But when you run the zone the way that they run the zone, it requires you to have patience. And DeAndre Swift, he has more patience than any running back I've seen since Le'Veon Bell. The things he was doing tonight, my goodness.
Now, the one thing about DeAndre Swift, if you looked at Hard Knocks last year and the way Deuce Staley was kind of miffed at the way he ran, he was kind of impress upon him. Don't cut everything outside. He got really frustrated about that, Deuce Staley, in that Hard Knocks, where you get to the tackle. Now, he does, he showed some patience, but he is always inclined to cut it out.
Well, but if you're going to run zone, then you need a running back that's like that. You need a guy, because what makes great run defenses great is the fact that each guy can hold their gap, okay, and make the running back commit. But when you have a running back that's as patient as DeAndre Swift is, he's biding his time. He's letting his blocks get set up because he knows where the blocker should be. Now, the linebackers are sitting back there. The defensive linemen, they're trying to hold their gap. But once he gets them to commit, now he makes his decision which way he wants to go. And that's a good running back. You always talk about running backs having the patience to wait for the blocking scheme to weigh itself out. A guy that'll just hit the hole, guess what? He'll run into the back of his offensive lineman half the time because he won't give them the time to get where they need to, get their butts here, that guy's butt's here, run to the two butts.
See, Miles Sanders tried to stretch everything outside too much sometimes, but Miles Sanders still ran for over 1,200 yards. Now, a lot of the credit goes to that offensive line, but I guarantee you there's a whole lot of teams out there, and obviously Carolina picked them up for this reason, would love to have a running back that makes mistakes to still have a great ability to be a home run hitter almost every time he touches the football. If you can make a mistake and still be a 1,000-yard rusher, I guarantee you most teams will take that every time.
Now, do you think with the defensive game planning that teams might start putting on Jalen Hurts that the Eagles would be smart to kind of run that two-back system and take the pressure off Jalen to run the ball so much?
Well, I don't think you're ever going to see most of these offenses go back to a two-back system. You know, I think what you're going to start to see is you're going to start to see more and more teams stop. And you're going to see, I shouldn't say teams, but I think the best thing that the Eagles can do now is kind of get away from the RPO game and make the run game with their running backs, you know, the focal point. And then over time, once you get teams to move out of this funk that they're in to try to keep Jalen Hurts from running the ball, then you can slowly but surely start feeding it back in.
Mm-hmm.
But teams have spent the entire season trying to figure out how do we handle this read option that they run and the RPO that they run, you know, and they're not playing their DBs, you know, at 12 to 15 yards for safeties so that they can take away the read, the pull, and the slant. So it's no longer there. So the RPO, to a great extent, is really dead for them because they've come up with a way to take the slant away, and then when they're crashing in on the running back, and then all of a sudden Jalen pulls it, the slant's not there. The only option he has is to run it, and now the defense is flowing fast.
And I'm going to tell you something, Seth, and you saw the same thing. He's getting battered. He's taking a lot of hits in the first two games.
Way too many.
What, Mike, that one play he ran up the middle, and you saw his knee, and he got up a little bit slower, and that made me hold my breath for a moment because he had 12 carries tonight. Okay, I was hoping you see him run a lot less because of the explosiveness potential of this offense. Well, the offense has sputtered a little bit, and you need him to do a little bit more in this offense. But I'm telling you, Mike, the first two games, we've seen the DNs on both teams, New England and Minnesota, play more discipline on the edge. They're not over pursuing him. They're forcing him back up the middle, which is allowing these linebackers and these D tackles to get more shots on him. You can't allow that to happen.
And the problem is what kills the RPO is the lack of commitment by that end guy on the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
Because when he pulls the ball, they're standing right there.
Yes, waiting
so
for it.
if the wide receivers aren't winning on their routes right now, he don't have anywhere to go with the ball. Nowhere to go with it.
Do you think that Jalen Hurts in this situation, though, he's very stagnant and not confident, it seems, in his run as well? You mentioned it, Derek, right there, that it was scary today, and this is only week 2. You don't want to see that the rest of the season because Jalen Hurts is a guy you don't want to go down. Do you think this is something Nick Sirianni takes over a little bit and says, we're going to relieve him of that run a little bit and give it to DeAndre Swift and Kenny Gainwell, have those guys do it and find out your weapons? Or do you think it's going to be up to Johnson to try to make that decision? When do you think Nick Sirianni takes over?
I really believe that, you know, it's a situation where they've got to continue to look at the hits that he's taken. So you brought up the one, but the one that you didn't bring up is the one where he scrambled out of the pocket. Jordan Hicks caught him going
On the outside,
sideways,
yeah.
okay, and rolled up on him, and he had dirt all on his head, all over the place. You know, he can't keep taking those hits because you know what? It's not if he gets hurt, it's just when he's going to get hurt next. So you have to, as a coaching staff, you got to step back and say, okay, if we've got to run the ball to get our offense in motion, we're going to run via our running backs. We are not going to keep putting our quarterback in harm's way because you can see teams are like they are coming to try to punish him for running the football.
Exactly.
So you have to be smart and roll that back and say, okay, we're going to put it on our offensive line. We're going to put it on running backs, on our tight ends. We're going to block it up. We're going to get our offense going via the run, but it's not going to be with our quarterback anymore. It's going to be with our running game.
Not only that, Seth, but on that play you're talking about where Jordan Hicks drove him to the turf, you notice he had to have the referee helped him up. You know, and I wonder if he had a little wooziness because when you get your head drove in that, first thing you're thinking is concussion.
Right.
I agree with you in terms of trying to protect Jalen Hurts from himself, but because of his overall athleticism, as strong as he is for a quarterback and his ability to do that, in some ways that's handcuffing him. And it might make him think too much instead of reacting to situations, which leads to trouble in a lot of cases.
Right. I get what you're saying. I'm not saying completely abandon it.
Right.
But I'm saying minimize the amount of times that you put him in those RPO situations so that at least you can get the flow of your offense going with your run game, okay? And then once you've established, once they establish the run through DeAndre Swift, they could go back and get the RPO if they really wanted it. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
Especially when they got in situations where, you know, in third down situations where they backed off. You understand what I'm saying? But my point is you've got to protect him and help him protect himself because he thinks he's Superman and he thinks that he can do everything that he did last year. I got news for you.
Yeah.
The NFL, them defensive coordinators, they weren't just, you know, playing golf in off season. They were studying film and trying to figure out how to minimize the effectiveness of the guy that came in second place in the MVP voting for the National Football League last year.
And honestly, right now, Jalen Hurts, you mentioned him thinking too much that might happen if you take the run game away. Guys, I think he's thinking too much a little bit right now. He seems hesitant sometimes, but what worked tonight for him was handing it off to DeAndre Swift, of course, and also Devontae Smith. Was it good to see that connection get back? I know A.J. Brown wasn't happy, but Brown did say that him and Smith are both wide receiver ones. There's no 1 and 2.
Right. Well,
it's nice that he said that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he meant it
I
week
don't know if
two,
he said that on the sideline when he was hot and bothered about
I'm
it.
trying to figure out when he said it. I guarantee he didn't say it tonight.
Yeah,
he did not say that tonight. He seemed very upset tonight. But seeing that connection go back and seeing a little bit more of Dallas Goedert, do you think for Jalen Hurts right now it's just the lack of preseason play, or do you really think he's struggling with the defenses being thrown at him?
I just think that, you know, listen, with success, man, that's a good quote right here, D-Gun.
Yeah.
With success.
Wait, should I write this down?
Yeah, you should write this
All right,
down.
let me write this down.
With success comes great expectation.
Ooh. That's profound.
Did you make that up, or is that
it just
off
came
the top
to
of your
me.
head?
It just came to me right now. With success comes great expectation, and the Eagles got this close to winning the Lombardi Trophy last year.
All right.
Okay? And because they got that close and they had the kind of success that they had, the expectation is that all of a sudden they should be doing the same thing this year that they did last year.
And even better sometimes.
Okay. And even better sometimes. Wow. And the problem is when your expectations are there and the process or the methodology of how to get there, you're trying to search for it and you're trying to find it, it's almost like you get frustrated. Like as a player, I've been there before, you know, where it's like I'm playing in the game and I'm seeing everybody make plays, and I'm like, damn it, I don't even have a tackle yet, you know? So then you start to press and you start to do things that you normally wouldn't do instead of just relaxing and letting the game come to you. Like every player is not there for you to be made. It doesn't work that way. That's why you got a team. That's why there's 10 other people on the roster.
Right.
You know, so sometimes you have to step back and let other things transpire until the balance of it all comes back to you.
I think this is also a part of the evolution of the Brian Johnson offense. This is not a Shane Steichen offense anymore. And even though Brian Johnson has been with Sirianni and Steichen since they started this journey, Brian Johnson is going to want to put his own niche on this offense. Brian Johnson has to learn to read down in situations better. I don't know if he's thinking through things more, if he's relying on the analytics less, because the Eagles are big on analytics. But as we can see, it hasn't been quite as fluid as we thought it would be up to this point.
All right,
Okay?
All right, let's take a break. So with success comes great expectations. It might have been Charles Dickens or Charles Barkley. We don't know at this point. But Seth Joyner with a pearl of wisdom. We'll take
that's Seth Joyner. Make sure when you use that quote,
I gotta check
you
this
write
out.
Seth Joyner. You put,
Not Charles Dickens. That's Seth Joyner.
You put that little dash and you write Seth Joyner down beneath it.
Let's take a break. We're coming back with the 2-minute drill and John McMullen live from Lincoln Financial Field. You are watching the Pine Lehocky Eagles postgame show live from Ocean Casino. Back after this.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Weather forecasting is a team game.
We rely on each other every day, updating the models and passing along new critical information.
We have a team of 5 experienced meteorologists and a specialized weather producer, Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Sometimes what I see in the model, Cecily could see something different.
That's when we come together as a team to make our most accurate prediction.
And all of this backed by more than 100 AccuWeather scientists. It's a team game.
And we have the best team in town.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back to the Pine Lehocky Eagles postgame show, live from the beautiful Ocean Casino. You see the sports book in the background. A couple college games on tonight. And of course, the Eagles win 34-28. Now, it wasn't that close. Interestingly enough, the line with all these injuries went down to what? 6. So people got to push on tonight's game. And, of course, we're back with the gang. I'm Mike Missinelli with Derek Gunn, Seth Joyner, and Mark Farzetta joining us. Time for our Dry Tech 2-minute drill, rapid-fire game analysis. Let's start, fellas. Overall worry factor from 1 to 10 on how the Eagles look right now.
From 1 to 10?
From 1 to 10, what is your worry factor? With 10 being the highest worry.
I would say a 6 right now.
6, so you're not that worried?
And I'm not that worried yet because They beat two opponents who are not as talented as they are. There are some flaws, but the bottom line is they're 2 up instead of being 1 up and 1 down. So, and now they have extended time off to get some bodies healed up and to work on some of the things. Brian Johnson has extended time to look over 2 games worth of film to find out where his flaws are as well. So right now, as we sit here tonight, they're 2-0. I'm at a 6 right now in terms of my concern. Do I have concerns? Yes, but I'm at a 6 level right now.
Seth, are you concerned more than 6?
I am. Because the adjustment was made to go to the run game, and that's what saved them. Because had they continued to run plays the way that they run plays, they may have lost this game. And it seems to me that, there's not a major remedy for how the Eagles are actually, they don't have a plan for how to get to the passes that they want to. And I don't know whether it's because, Jalen Hurts isn't reading the defense pre-snap. I'm not sure whether it's the play calls that we're seeing, but I know that when I look at a coach like Andy Reid, in his offensive scheme, they've got routes that are designed to beat certain plays. You hear, people talk about cover 2 beaters, cover 4 beaters, cover 6 beaters. They've got routes that destroy coverages based upon how they know that you play those coverages. And I'm watching our quarterback sit in the pocket, A, not sure of what coverage they're in, and B, not being able to get his wide receivers open against no matter what the coverages are, So that's worrisome for me because they had to go completely to the running game to get any offense going. And if you can't adjust in game and you can't say, okay, if they're giving us cover 4, you're reading it pre-snap, or they're giving us cover 2, and we're going to send a tight end up the seam, and then we're going to run a crosser right behind it to kill cover 2. If your routes aren't deployed in that way and you can't make those checks at the line of scrimmage, then that's problematic going further on. Because when you get to Dallas's defense and the 49ers defense, you damn well better have that worked out.
Jets defense?
Jets defense?
See, I say, he says the running game saved them. I say 2 Viking crucial turnovers saved them. Because if the Vikings had converted those 2 turnovers, that punt return and the Jefferson gaffe, the Eagles are not running the ball as much as they are because they're playing from behind instead of ahead.
I'm telling you right now, I thought when this season started that the offense would have to carry the defense for a while.
I agree.
It has been completely the other way around because the defense is on one right now. They are turning the ball over at an alarming rate, and as long as they continue to turn the ball over like that, I go back to my notes just last week alone. The Patriots, all of these punts, the strip sack, the interception. Yeah. I'm like, are you kidding me? They're averaging, almost 3 turnovers a game.
Yeah, 6 in 2 games, yeah.
So when you're averaging turnovers in that way, in that manner, now there's going to come a time where that dries up. That's just the nature of the game. They come in bunches, and then all of a sudden you can't get any at all. So if the offense can't find its footing and the defense is not turning the ball over, and the special teams continues to be a liability. Jake Elliott missed a 55-yarder tonight. Britton Colby got lucky that we got on a fumble punt. This game could take. Everything could turn
made up
like
for
that.
it with a 61-yarder prior to halftime, though, which is amazing. Parsi, overall worry factor with Jalen Hurts. Now he made a terrible throw. That resulted in an interception where he should have known better. I didn't see him make a mistake like that all last year.
No, that was the most egregious mistake I think we've seen from Jalen Hurts. So it is concerning. And to go back to Seth Jones' post, I totally agree with everything you said. I'll be where you're at right now if they look exactly the same and Jalen Hurts looks exactly the same 11 days from now. After they have this time off, hopefully have time to correct things, hopefully have time for Brian Johnson. Look, I wasn't expecting, and I know a lot of people in the offseason were talking about Brian Johnson, how he's known Jalen Hurts since he was 4 years old and all that. That's great. He had never called plays for a 4-year-old Jalen Hurts, and he hadn't called plays for a 24-year-old Jalen Hurts either. So now they're getting that opportunity. I think over the next couple of days here, they're going to get into the coaches' rooms. They're going to have those meetings. They're going to correct it. To talk about the level of if I'm at 10 when it comes to the most possible worried I could be about this team, I'm right now at about a 3. Now, if after 11 days they show a lot of these same problems and Jalen Hurts still isn't recognizing what's in front of him, if he's not making good reads even on running the football, which he didn't do in this particular game. So many times we watch running backs and they try to bounce the ball outside, they try to dance a little too much. That's what Jalen Hurts did tonight when he looked like he was trying to run the football. But I'm not that concerned yet about Jalen Hurts.
Is that 3 with Hurts, or is that 3 with the overall worry factor?
3 overall, and Jalen Hurts. I'm not going to go.
You're not worried at all.
I'm not going to go right now
for both.
For both, I'm not going to go from picking this team to go into a Super Bowl after 2 games in 5 days to all of a sudden, oh no, there's a great conflagration. This is all on fire. This is going to be terrible. All of a sudden, this team is good enough. And look, also this, when it comes to the overall team, the fact that they could just say, all right, we're just going to run the football down their throat. Look, the Eagles set out to build this team as a great team in the trenches. They have accomplished that. To be able to have that kind of push in the middle of your defensive line, to be able to have that kind of dominance from your offensive line is great. And I still think Jalen Hurts is going to return to be an MVP, perennial MVP candidate quarterback.
All right, so it's good that they have another lever that they can pull.
Absolutely.
And the good teams have another lever when they need it.
And I'm not going to ignore the fact that offensive line and that run game and those turnovers bailed the Eagles out. I'm not denying that. But I still think there's a much better brand of football left in Jalen Hurts this year.
All right, let's go with this one now, because we worried about it a little bit, the new coordinators. So far, how is that going, D-Gun?
I'm going to give Sean Desai somewhat of a mulligan tonight because he was playing with such a deficit in terms of personnel. I still have a lot of question marks about Brian Johnson's offense, and can they figure this thing out relatively quickly instead of later? Because they have to. I mean, 17 games is a long season, but it's not that many games. I'm okay with Desai right now until he gets his full complement of people back. Brian Johnson, you got to show me something, man, in terms of play calling. I'm not there yet with him.
All right, let's go to the man who covered tonight's game for JAKIB Sports, the great John McMullen, joining us live from Lincoln Financial Field. Hello, John. Good to see you on the scene now down there, huh?
Yeah, how about that? Back in business, boys. Good to be with you. 2-0.
Yeah, and you're they're 2-0. Your overall assessment here, they needed the running attack to bail them out a little bit tonight after a shaky start to their offense and a shaky start with the quarterback. So how you feeling right now?
Well, I think it's a mark of a good team when you sort of can win games and you're not playing your best. So I think that's good. But yeah, I mean, offensively, it's kind of disjointed, stilted, whatever adjective you want to use. Be nice to get the passing game going a little bit, but that offensive line, they were blowing people off the ball. And look, I got a lot of respect for Brian Flores, but man, he's playing these light boxes. All these teams like to play these light boxes, and the Eagles are just calling inside zone, inside zone, inside zone. Jason Kelsey was talking about it afterwards, and it's like, we're going to keep doing it. And they just destroyed the Minnesota front. And you got to give the Eagles credit for adjusting to that, because Shane Steichen used to say that all the time. You're going to keep giving me that? I'll take it. So I can't criticize Brian Johnson for doing that.
All right, John, because inquiring minds need to know, forget the X's and O's for just a moment. What did you find out about the intense-looking conversation on the sideline between A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, and Nick Sirianni?
Well, Nick, he wouldn't talk about it at all. He shut it down completely. He said everything's on the sideline, so he's going to be private. He was a little, standoffish about it, to put it mildly. Jalen talked about it a little bit and said, look, competitors want the football. They're good friends. They'll get over it. I think it was a heat of the moment type thing. It's interesting, when you have great players, and everybody says it's a good problem to have, but a problem is a problem, right? And when good players don't get the football, sometimes they get upset about it. And tonight was a game where AJ wasn't getting the football, and he got upset about it. So long term, I don't think it's going to be a problem because they are good friends. But, Jalen's not throwing the football well at this stage, I would say. I think it's fair to point that out. He had the 2 deep shots to DeAndre Swift. I think that had more to do with the poor coverage of Minnesota, just letting guys get behind him. A lot of bad coverage on both sides, a lot of blown coverages. But the Eagles weren't able to take advantage of it. Maybe that's just because they were running the football so well. They said, let's stop it. But I think when you look at the box score of this game, it looks much worse for the Eagles than it really was. They kind of dominated this game. But you look up at the scoreboard and the Vikings are within 1 score and you say, oh, what's going on here? Very similar to last week. I never got the feeling Minnesota was in this game, and then you look up and, in theory they are, but I thought the Eagles pretty soundly outplayed them.
John, for me, it comes down to how long can the Eagles continue to live on the edge like this? It's almost, I liken it to the game of golf, okay? You keep missing greens, you keep chipping, you get up and down, you get up and down, you get up and down. But sooner or later, you're going to make a bogey, okay?
Bogey?
Yeah,
you're going to make 8.
No, I'm just saying. Sooner or later, it's gonna go sideways for you because that's a lot of stress on your game to always be putting for par instead of 2 putting for par, to be 1 putting for par. At some point in time, if they don't get this figured out, it's going to bite them in the behind. And we can talk about, good teams find ways to win. But, do we really feel like they're a good football team right now? They seem to me like they're still developing into a good football team. All these teams right now, because they don't play in the preseason, everybody's trying to figure it out. Some teams have acclimated to it. Other teams haven't. Some teams have gotten blown out. Some teams, have been right there and lost by a point or whatever at the end of a game. But I think if you keep flirting with and tempting fate like this, sooner or later, it's not going to work out in your favor.
Well, I agree with that. If they play this way against a good team, they're going to lose. But, I kind of, the glass half full, I would say. I'll use the comparison of the old school pitcher in baseball. Like, if you had Roger Clemens, he would grind through when he didn't have his best stuff and find a way to win games. But eventually you expect those great pitchers to, go 8 innings, give up 3 hits, and completely dominate. That's what you have to expect at some point from the Eagles. If they don't get there, that's a problem. But I think it's a positive when you're playing teams that are more talented than, and they're not playing well, but they find ways to win. I think that part of it's a positive. But yeah, they have not been impressive. I think we could all agree with that.
Well, I'll leave you with this quote. There's 2 things that don't last long, okay? That's pros putting for pars and dogs chasing cars. Okay, so sooner or later they better get it together.
He's been profound tonight.
Well, all of a sudden we got Plato on the set here with his philosophies. John, you're right. They dominated the game. For the time of possession, 40-20. So yeah, you're right. They dominated the game, and they had a gear to go to that when the other thing wasn't working, they were able to just take advantage and rip the other team apart.
And that's the thing. That's the thing, Mike. Every time Minnesota did something well, the Eagles answered. That's the mark of a good team as well. They answered. Plus, don't dismiss the 259 yards rushing. Don't dismiss that. I mean,
not at all.
This is the 10th time. This is the 10th time they've done that in the Nick Sirianni era, gone over 200. And with all due respect to DeAndre Swift, these were huge holes he was going through. I mean, and I'm not saying anybody could have did it. He had a very good game, but you know, it was nice to play against the Lightbox with that offensive line kind of leaning on them the entire time, and I think they were. So that part's really good. The turnovers, you talk about the Jefferson touchback. I mean, that's hustle from Terrell Edmonds, whether it's Avonte Maddox punching out the football from Alexander Madison, whether it's Josh Sweat with the strip sack. Josh Sweat was tremendous today. He hurt that poor backup left tackle who got carted off because it was such an unbelievable move. Looks like he blew out his knee. Josh is playing really well. There's a lot of good things. They gave up, I got to look at, they gave up 28 yards rushing. 28 yards rushing. And this is a team we talk about all the time, Seth. The Bandit, they play with light boxes, and they're giving up 28 yards rushing. That tells you they're just whipping that offensive line, which I kind of talked about all week. It's very weak, especially interior offensive line.
One of the things I got to say I loved about last week's game, John, and you talked about the locker room a little bit there a second ago. Everyone after the Patriots game, to a man, including A.J. Brown, talked about how that game was a, quote, teaching moment for the rest of the team. Now, I don't like week one being a teaching moment. That should be the preseason. But what was the mood in the locker room after this game? Obviously, like we've talked about, they were able to shift to the run to kind of save their hide today. Defense came up with some big plays in this one. But overall, how do you think the Eagles themselves are feeling about, sure, being 2-0, but obviously still far from playing that perfect game?
Well, I think it starts with Nick. He was a little salty, like I said, at the start before he calmed down a little bit. I don't think he's happy with the way the offense is playing as a whole, and really the passing game. He's not upset about the running game. And look, they came out. Brian Flores puts out these unique fronts and these unique blitzes, and I think they had trouble with it. And then you sort of default to Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, and on and on and on. Jordan Mailata had a big pancake block of our old friend Jordan Hicks. I mean, they were just pushing those guys off the ball. And, you know, I asked Nick, what took you so long to get to it? We know what the Eagles believe. From Jeffrey Lurie on down. This is a passing game, a passing league. They want to have a high-octane passing offense. I think they get a little pissed off when they have to go, all right, Jason Kelsey, Lane, go win us this game. As weird as it sounds, you know, but if that's what you got to default back to, that's pretty good default setting.
John, you mentioned Sweat had a great game, and the young boys in the middle played, I thought, well, but they're not getting anything from that left side with Hassan Reddick. Is there any kind of a worry factor now with that thumb the way it is?
Yeah, well, I want to say one thing. Minnesota's right tackle, Brian O'Neill, he's a local kid from Delaware, but he's probably the second best right tackle in football. So he's their only good offensive lineman. They have Christian Darrisaw, but he wasn't able to play. He's very good as well, but he wasn't able to play. So Hassan was playing a really good player, number one. And I think he's having an issue with the thumb. And it makes sense because as an edge rusher, you have to use your hands. And I think he's still figuring it out. So ultimately, I think he'll get more comfortable with it and he'll play lesser players and you'll start seeing some of the splash plays. But I will say Brian O'Neill's a really good player and he did a really good job on it today.
Hey, John, have you heard any updates in terms of the shoulder injury to Avonte Maddox?
Nothing concrete, but obviously when you get ruled out, I saw him walking off, and he was holding it. It's never a good sign, you know. As it was hanging there, he's trying to hold it. So that's one of those things, you know. D-Gun, they give us, get the MRI tomorrow.
Yeah.
But they were banged up a little bit as well, and that continued. Now, the good news is they got the extra, the mini bye plus the extra day, because the next game's Monday night in Tampa, so they even have the extra day. So if guys are able to go, you certainly expect James Bradbury to be back by that point. We'll see on some of the others, but yeah, it's not like last year. They're already getting more banged up and more banged up. And I saw Josh was limping, just Landon was getting checked for something. Yeah, I mean, they were really lucky in injuries last year. It's kind of regressing to the mean, it seems, this year.
John, you said that, Nick is a little agitated tonight, in his press conference, primarily because the offense isn't operating as efficiently as he wants it to operate. I know you don't know, but I'm going to ask anyway. How long can this inefficiency continue before the possibility of Nick Sirianni taking over play calling becomes a reality?
I don't think he's taken over play calling because he kind of has admitted that he can't control the entire team like he wants to if he's calling plays. That's why he gave up it originally. He felt he was too bogged down and he wanted to be more involved in each aspect. And by the way, I like CEO coaches better than guys that just focus on one side of football. So he's made it very clear that he doesn't want to take over play calling again. He likes being a CEO coach. If it comes down to that, it'd probably be changing to Kevin Petula to call the plays. But I think we're a long way away from that. Look, one thing, especially because they faced, they faced a big blitzing team today, and even New England blitzes more than average. The one thing they didn't do well offensively last year, guys, was handle pressure with hot routes. Typically, that's what quarterbacks do. The Eagles would run a lot of those bubble screens to combat it, and they don't work. They haven't worked for this team. So they ran them last year with Shane. They're running them this year with Brian because that's part of the offense. It's Nick's offense. They have to execute better. They have to get those things better. But, yeah, I mean, overall, you got to be honest. We all love Jalen Hurts. We all know what kind of season he had. He's not performing at a high level right now as a passer. People don't like it. I know they're going to yell at me. He's not. He had the 2 deep balls, and it's not all bad, but he's not performing at the level he was last season. It's still early. I'm not hitting the panic button, but I think it's fair to say that.
John, I'll say this. I know that the Eagles don't like to sight adjust. They like to protect up and try to push the ball downfield. Okay? But at what point in time, if you're going to face this continued barrage of blitzes, do you get to a point where you say, okay, we're going to max protect and send 2 guys out in the route and everybody else is going to block? Or go to a sight adjust system that allows the nod of the head of the quarterback, to say, okay, if I've got outside technique by my wide receiver, we're going to run a slant. If I got inside technique, we're either going to run a fade, we're going to cut our split down and run a fade or run a speed out. But you got to adjust to something that allows you, to succeed rather than just continue to bump your head against the wall. Because at the end of the day, this is the blueprint. Teams are going to continue to bring pressure at Jalen Hurts to try to stop them from getting explosive plays through the air.
Yeah, I agree. Occasionally they'll run those fades you were talking about or the go routes, and they have success with that. But as far as the underneath stuff, the sight adjustments aren't there in this offense. And part of it is just the offense is not run that way. And to your point about keeping guys in the block, I mean, the Eagles think they have a luxury, and they do, because they know they can leave Mailata and Lane on islands and they can hold up. Whereas you just saw a team without their left tackle, they had to do all these different things. And Josh Sweat was talking about how much help they gave Udo, and they still couldn't stop Josh Sweat. When you have to do that, it makes it more difficult to run your offense. So I think from the Eagles' perspective, they like the luxury of being able to say, hey, Jordan, Lane, you're on islands, and we're going to do our other stuff. And I think that's smart to take advantage of those guys. But the sight adjustments, I'm with you. The ball's got to come out. It can't be bubble screen, wide receiver screen all the time. You got A.J. Brown who can, he's got that sign in his locker that says always open. And he is always open because his body is so big, he can play power forward, run a slant, throw it to him. You saw Devontae get loose. I just think they haven't been effective throwing the football, and who throws the football. Sometimes it's Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually correct. Jalen Hurts is not throwing the football at the level he did last season.
You're right. They haven't been running those slants either. John, good to have you back on the scene. And you are right at Lincoln Financial Field because Al Michaels called it Veterans Stadium tonight. I didn't know if they went back to the old name or not. But, no, that was a cheap shot. I love Al. Good to have you, John. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
One more question, real quick.
All right, guys. You got another question? Go ahead.
Hey, John, hold on. You still there?
Yeah, I got it.
All right, just real quick. Okay, we know it's a one-game sample with DeAndre Swift, but based on performance, does he elevate to the number one back ahead of Gainwell at this point?
Yeah, I think he has to. I'm taking credit for that because I was ripping their running back room all week. So, of course, he went for 174 or whatever he went for. That's the most yards since LaShawn McCoy in the snow game. So it's been a while. Look, they were big holes. Boston ran for 8 yards a carry as well and 5 carries. He was very effective. So, if Kenny Gainwell was healthy, he would have been effective. But I do think DeAndre Swift has more juice than the other two. And Rashad Penny, he seems buried at this point as the fourth back. But, I think he earned the spot. I do. He earned the right to be the number one guy in Tampa Bay, at least. Now, that's a much more difficult defense to run against because you have Vita Vea right in the middle. We'll learn a lot more about these running backs because part of me wants to say great game, and everybody's going to give DeAndre his flowers, and they should. He had a phenomenal game. But, man, it really was the offensive line. Those guys were just blowing people off the ball.
All right, John, thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we'll see you in like 14 days, apparently. All right? Next game,
wow.
there's a big buy for all of us here. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's John McMullen. He's live from Lincoln Financial Field. Coming back, Mark Farzetta extending the play with Mark Farzetta. Also some game balls that we have to give out today. Right here on the Pond Lehocky Eagles post-game show, live from Ocean Casino. Back after this.
My wife was in an accident that changed our lives forever. She was in rehabilitation for years. She had to learn to walk again. She couldn't take care of herself. We couldn't afford a nurse. We were running out of options. One conversation with Pond Lehocky changed everything. They understood what we were going through and immediately helped us navigate the legal process. We can't thank them enough.
Pond Lehocky. Tell us your story.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Some say courage is something you're born with. Others say courage is something you find. In every generation throughout history, courage has been celebrated, sought after, needed. It holds the potential for a life of impact. But what if courage isn't just something you hope for or stumble upon? What if courage is something that can be shaped at a place that inspires you, where leaders invest in you, your community believes in you, and your life becomes something bigger than it could ever be alone?
Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
EAGLES.
Eagles.
Hey, folks, it is the Pine Lehocky Eagles postgame show live at Ocean Casino. Mike Missinelli with Derek Gunn, Seth Joyner, and Mark Farzetta. And, Mark, we were really proud to be at a great event the other day at Huntington Valley Country Club. Tell me a little bit about it and the charity EBOD.
It was fantastic. You, me, Seth, Gunnar, unfortunately, could. I guess you were fishing or something.
No, I was on official grandson babysitting
babysitting duty. Well, you did miss a great time at Huntington Valley Country Club. We are proud here at JAKIB Media to be partnering with EBOD when it comes to combating Alzheimer's. A lot of us, many of us, odds are most of us, have been affected by Alzheimer's when it's come to a beloved relative. I can tell you, I remember, unfortunately, my grandmother even asked me once, "Who are you again?" And I said, Mom, don't worry. Of your 21 grandchildren, I am by far your favorite. We are combating that in our partnership with EBOD in something that we're calling the Big Game Sweepstakes. Score for a cure. Here's what you need to do as a viewer of JAKIB Media. Text the word SCORE to 833-202-9835. That's text the word SCORE to 833-202-9835. And this is what you want to do. You want to enter in a promo code for Team Miss, Team Seth, Team Gunn, that's of course with 2 N's for Derek Gunn, and Team Farzi as well. You're going to be basically choosing sides as to who will win our Top Golf tournament. Now, we all love the game of golf. We all enjoy it. You guys are far better at it than I am, but we are going to be having a lot of fun to try to raise money, raise awareness, and also make sure somebody wins 2 tickets to the big game in a little town called Las Vegas, Nevada, coming up in February. So it is going to be a party for the ages at the end of all of this.
Yeah, we had good banter at the event, and I kind of got carried away because I was trying to pump up the crowd, and I said, if the Eagles don't start this season 5-0, I would play this golf course naked. I would like to rescind that.
Nobody want to see that, man.
Too late
right now because
I got a $50,000 bid to see that now.
Hey man, nobody want to see that mess, man.
Hey.
Nobody want to see it.
There were 2 ladies that started the bidding at $10,000.
Go viral.
Viral. You might get thrown in jail for that.
Yeah, that was a foolish thing.
Every social media platform.
That happened to me.
So you know how much money we gonna raise with that, man?
I'm gonna shut my platform down. I don't want to accidentally see nothing. I'm gonna shut all my platforms. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I'm shutting them all down. I don't want to see that, man.
I made that mistake one other time on the air where Ty Detmer started for the Eagles that day. And it was against the 49ers. It might have been against the 49ers. And I said, somebody called up and said, he's going to throw for 4 touchdowns. And I said, if Ty Detmer throws for 4 touchdowns in this game, I'm going to streak on the field, Veterans Stadium. Son of a gun, he threw for 4 touchdowns that day.
Did you streak?
No. I wore kind of a bodysuit. And they kind of filmed me because we were doing the Great Sports Debate, that old show way back in the day. And so they showed me with the bodysuit, like, ready to go on the field, but it never really happened. So
you owe us a streak.
Listen, I'm an idiot. So that's the way. Sometimes it comes out that way when you're on the live radio or television.
I think you owe us a streak, Michael.
Oh, no. My streaking days are over, man.
Understood. But all for a great cause, obviously.
Yeah. All right, let's give some game balls out, fellas. Last week, the game ball went to Jake Elliott.
Yes.
But this game ball is really kind of, a no-brainer here. With you got to go DeAndre Swift with a career high 175 or whatever it was. So I'm going to tell you right now, that's my game ball. You got anything different from you fellas?
Yes. DeAndre Swift, 28 carries, $175, a career night for him. But I said it before, and I'm going to have to say it again. He doesn't get those yards without those beasts up front, opening up gaping holes for him. They did an awesome job controlling the line of scrimmage and pushing that Vikings defensive front all over the place. I got to give it to the 5 horsemen up front. I'm sorry. And that's not a diss against DeAndre Swift. He had a phenomenal game, but those 5 horsemen up front paved the way.
I think McMullen just convinced you of that.
No, hey, didn't I say it earlier tonight, Seth? Didn't you hear me say that? I have to give it to, and Mark brought it up earlier.
I vaguely remember.
That's because you got
now
Dane Reddick.
I can't argue with it.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Slice the ball in 5.
I won't argue with it either, but I look at the game from a different perspective. It's the offensive line's job to open up holes so that the running back can run through it.
Sure.
It's the running back's job to decipher where they're supposed to hit the hole when you run an inside zone, because it's not as simple as running to the 2, 4, 6, 8 hole or the 1, 3, 5, 7 hole. You're zoning to a specific area, and based upon the blocks, you got to make a decision. And I've seen great patience. I've seen him run with great aggressiveness. So while the offensive line, I give them a very high grade. At the other end of the spectrum, when Rashad Penny was in there, he wasn't doing it. They were still opening up holes, okay? So it'd be absolutely insane for this kid to rush for 175 yards and a touchdown, and I believe he should have had more touchdowns instead of doing the little push thing after he done run the ball all the way down the field. Then you give Jalen Hurts these touchdowns.
I agree.
The running back earned it, so he should get the touchdown.
Yeah, let him have those 3 touchdowns
Let him
in the
finish
game.
what he started.
Absolutely.
Now, Seth,
DeAndre Swift, no doubt about it.
You just asked John McMullen about a new play caller.
Yeah.
There is a new play caller, and his name is Lane Johnson, who called the run plays in that second quarter to make sure they just stuck to what they were doing well. So if I got to give a game ball to one person that's not DeAndre Swift and not just the entire offensive line, I'm going to give that game ball to new offensive play caller Lane Johnson.
Y'all crazy, man. 2-1.
What do you mean 2-1?
2-1. We both got
come on,
DeAndre Swift.
2-1.
You got the offensive line, and he got Lane Johnson.
Look.
You say the running back gets a career high 175. You're going to deny him a ball?
No, but I'm saying, look, Seth is right. The offensive line did the job they're supposed to do, but they went above and beyond the call of duty. The holes that DeAndre Swift was running through, as big as this space we're doing this postgame.
You know what?
Stop it, but he had to get to those holes.
Seth, on bad hamstrings, you could have picked up a $150.
No,
I'm telling you right now, you had at least a $150.
Hey, listen, even back in the day when I was in high school and playing running back, I wasn't making the cuts that he was making. Okay?
I get it. I love DeAndre Swift.
And I'm telling you, once you go back and you watch the film, you'll see that there are some holes there, but you'll see that it was his patience running the football and making the right cuts and going to the right places and making people miss in tight spaces. That was the difference.
You were a running back?
I'm staying offensive.
Hold on a second. You were a running back in high school?
I'm an athlete. Okay?
How big were you in high school, man?
I wasn't a football player. I was an athlete. I played baseball. I played basketball. I played football. I ran track. I wrestled. I did it all.
I get it. How big were you in high school?
I was the same height. I've been this height ever since I was
What was
in the
your weight?
ninth
You was
round.
that height at
100
2 years old.
I was 195 pounds.
So I'm sticking your big ass at right tackle. That's what I'm thinking.
No, sir.
I'm
No,
running
sir.
back. And
I played fullback. I played tight end. I played tailback. You know, I played defensive end. I played linebacker. I was an athlete. I'm still an athlete.
Seth was 6'2" at 9 years old.
Still an
Nobody's
athlete.
tackling you. But here, I'll give you 2 honorable mentions for a game ball, all right?
Okay.
Josh Sweat, I think, is an obvious one. When you hit the quarterback 5 times, it's still amazing to me that you look at 19 quarterback hits on Kirk Cousins the first 2 games of the season for the Minnesota Vikings, 5 of them courtesy of Josh Sweat in this game.
Wow.
And then after that, I can't believe I'm about to talk about a linebacker here, but none of us had high hopes for Zach Cunningham in this game. And he led your team in tackles today. I mean, he wasn't great. He wasn't a stand-up. But you talk about a guy that was coming into this game being thrown into the fire. And I know he's played games before. He's not a rookie by any means. But we didn't exactly have a high bar for him. And he played well tonight.
I told you guys, even Morrow played, Nicholas Morrow played well tonight. I'm telling you, where necessity meets opportunities for certain players, they understand that there's an opportunity for them to show the world who they are and what they can do, okay? And when Nakobe Dean being injured and other guys having an opportunity to play, there's a chance for these guys to show what they can do. And I contend that they're going to continue to play well. Now, they might not be the best linebackers against running football teams, but both of those guys can run. And the fact that they can run, they're a good fit against a team that really wants to throw the football.
All right, let's take a break. The show's still going on. We just have plenty more to say. It is the Punt Lehocky Eagles postgame show live at Ocean Casino, and we're back after this.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pond Lehocky, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch Action News live.
And the big story on Action News.
Plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on, always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES.
Mike's hot.
I didn't say nothing.
No, you didn't say nothing.
Alrighty, it is the Pon Lehocky post-game show live from Ocean Casino. I'm Mike Missinelli, Derek Gunn, Seth Joyner, and Mark Farzetta. And it is time to bring in our medical expert, the great Dr. Bruce Grossinger. And Dr. Bruce, there was a couple injuries out there tonight, one being Avonte Maddox. What did you see?
I'll translate. His shoulder hurt. He wasn't
Yeah,
feeling good. Sorry.
We lost the sound on Dr. Bruce here momentarily. We're trying to get that back. We don't have it. No, we don't have it. Dr. Bruce, you're silent. We can see your lips moving, but we can't we can't hear. Okay, let's take it back, and we'll try to straighten that out. So Avonte Maddox got a little banged up, and here's the thing about with all this time that the Eagles have to mend and heal, that's a good thing, right? So how many people do we expect to come back by the time they play their next game?
I would say Bradbury for sure. Avonte Maddox with the shoulder, the way he was hanging that shoulder, that's a wait-and-see issue. We know Nakobe Dean's not coming back. But I think just getting Bradbury back gives some stability on the back of that defense, if nothing more, in terms of communication.
All right, we have him now, Doc. Are you back with us? I still can't hear him.
Are you able to hear me at all?
Oh, there he is. All right.
Okay.
Dr. Bruce, we're just talking about.
Sorry about that. These are technical connections. And,
that's
I'm
all right.
Very good, that is said, poor at audiovisual.
I see you got the microphone in your hand. It's working. It's all good. So let's talk about the Maddox injury and what you saw, and you were trying to explain it when we didn't hear you.
Yes, it looked to me that he, obviously flew across to make a tackle, and he came up holding his shoulder and was supporting his shoulder, and the concern was that he may have separated his shoulder, and that would be a separation either at the acromioclavicular joint or at the glenohumeral joint. He also may have fractured his humerus or his glenoid, or he may have suffered a rotator cuff tear. So I have no doubt he had an x-ray in the locker room tonight, and he'll have an MRI tomorrow, but they're so thin in their defensive backfield. And obviously Avonte Maddox is very fragile. He missed most of the year last year with a turf toe, and they could certainly ill-use to lose him. And obviously a lot of young DBs there, and some miscommunications at the end, particularly that touchdown right in front of me where there was nobody covering the wide receiver.
That does not sound good. So let's talk about some injuries that we kind of missed last week because they were without 4 guys today. Let's talk about whether those guys, do you believe, knowing their injuries, will they be back for that Monday night game with a lot of time to heal up?
I'm pretty confident that Bradbury will be back. It takes there's 5 stages of concussion protocol, and it was just bad luck that the 2 games are so close together, 4 days apart. But what I hear is that Bradbury will be back, and they certainly could use him alongside Slay in the defensive backfield. The other guys that were surprising, Kenneth Gainwell seemed to play the whole game, but he was ruled out due to rib injuries. But I haven't heard there were any rib fractures, so I think he'll be back. And the big injury was Nakobe Dean, who was placed on an injured reserve. And the Eagles are very coy about not disclosing the nature of the foot injury, but it seems like it's not an Aaron Rodgers Achilles tear. We know that. It's probably not a Liz Frank injury. It may be just a strain of the foot, but obviously Nakobe being the signal caller, that's a problem. With Blankenship, he's another guy who finished the game last week, and we were unaware that he also had rib injury. So because we have this mini bye, I'm hoping that Blankenship will be back. Bradbury will pass concussion protocol. and Gainwell will join DeAndre Swift, who obviously had a game. I've been going to the game a long time. I don't remember somebody since Brian Westbrook who had such speed, cutting through holes and moving laterally. It was really amazing to watch.
Doctor, thanks again for joining us. I do want to ask you and follow up on those rib injuries. I know you're not treating these individual players, but when it does come to a general rib injury and the fact that you did have guys go back into the game last week against the Patriots, what is your optimism level when it comes to the idea of these guys being able to go come Monday night in Tampa against the Bucs? Are you feeling confident they'll be able to make a return by then?
I am. I don't believe there's any fractures of the ribs. They're muscles called the intercostal muscles, which get inflamed, and I know the training staff there is excellent. So it's basically a matter of pain relief, and so with ice and analgesics like Tylenol and Motrin, and just range of motion, I'm confident from what I hear that these rib injuries are not those which involve fractures. And as far as I can tell, to extrapolate, I think that that Blankenship should be back, and that Gainwell should be back, and that luckily they have a long time. They missed 2 Sundays, so that duration should be very helpful with respect to these multiple injuries.
All right, sounds good, Doc. Thanks for staying up late with us. Dr. Bruce Grossinger, right here on the JAKIB Media Pine Lehocky Eagles postgame show. Thanks, Dr. Bruce. We'll talk to you next week.
Nice. Bye-bye.
All right, there you go. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll close it out with some thoughts on what's ahead for the Eagles. They're 2-0. A lot of time before their next game in Tampa Bay. We'll analyze it after this on the Pine Lehocky Eagles postgame show.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pine Lehocky, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
but as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross. Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit. And the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
My name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech, we offer 3 major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!
Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
EAGLES. Eagles.
All righty. JAKIB Media post-game show live from Ocean Casino, the Pond Lehocky Eagles post-game show. As we wrap up what we saw tonight is the Eagles with another victory. It was a push if you're a betting man. 6-point victory. They were kind of in control the whole game. They doubled the time of possession for the Vikings. There are some minor things that we discussed today about the offense and Jalen Hurts not looking like he looked last year. First of all, I know, Derek, you have a little update on Vontae Maddox's condition?
Yeah, I was just told that they're still determining whether or not it's his shoulder or chest injury. They should have more clarity tomorrow morning when they do an MRI, but I was also told that he was in a lot of pain when he left the stadium tonight.
All right, so the talking points basically for this game, they beat a team they should have beaten. They went to another gear when they needed that gear to bail them out because their offense and the quarterback was they were staggering a little bit early in the first half, and they got the running game going. It was enough to propel them past the Minnesota Vikings tonight. We're not going to see that kind of running attack again. They ran the ball a ton today. So
never say never.
Okay, well, this was a necessary rushing attack tonight to rescue them, I think. And they found a pretty good player in DeAndre Swift after last week. He wasn't really involved. So where do we stand right now?
Well, we know they can impose their will on people on the ground as they did a season ago. We know this defense has a lot of work, and we also know that Jalen Hurts isn't quite where we expected him to be as a passer, not just throwing the football, but decision-making. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think that, they're going through some early season growing pains. I think, I've been looking at the chat all night and, people talk about negativity. Our job on here is to analyze what we see and talk about it. But I think at the end of the day, there'll come a point in time where they will figure it out. They'll get on track because they're just too good across the board. They've got an offensive line. Now they've got 2 able-bodied running backs and a third in Boston Scott. I think if they gave him a full diet, I think he'd give us just as much production as the other 2 can give us. You got a top 3 tight end, and 2 really good, wide receivers out there. So at some point in time, they're going to figure it out. And defensively, they turn the ball over at a high rate, and you got young players in key positions that are still learning. I think the longer you can have Darius Slay and James Bradbury on the field, the more of a benefit they can be to these young defensive backs, and that's even including Reed Blankenship, because you have to have that conversation. You got to have that communication, and that communication has to begin in the DB room, and then it's got to filter out to the walkthrough, to the practice, and then and only then will it filter out to the game. So I'm not saying that the house is burning down. I'm not overly worried, but I'm concerned because I think that this offense has got to get on track in order for them to have a full team. They can't keep relying on the offense to give them 2, 3, 4 turnovers a game. It just doesn't work like that. At some point in time, that well's going to dry up.
So it is too early to be concerned about the quarterback.
I'm not concerned because, listen, it's no different than on the defensive side of the ball. I think we all believed that there would be some growing pains just because, you got a new defensive coordinator and you got a new system. Well, guess what? You got a new offensive coordinator, and the system might not be 100% new, but they got to get familiar with each other and how they operate on game day. They have never done that before. So I'm not really worried about it. Jalen Hurts will calm down. He'll get even keeled, and everything will materialize the way that it needs to. It's just going to take time.
All right. Next game, a long way from now, they play Tampa Bay on a Monday night, not next Monday, but the following Monday. So we'll be back for that. Let's close it down. Lehocky, our crew.
Oh, we got to bring the rest of the crew out. Absolutely.
Bring the rest of the crew in here to say goodbye. There's Bill Colarulo and, of course, Kayla Santiago. Thanks for your contributions to the programming today, live from Ocean Casino. So for these guys, I'm Mike Missinelli. We will see you Monday. What is the date of that?
25th.
That's a long time. I didn't even know what the date is.
25th.
The 25th of September. We will see you on the post-game show on a Monday Night Football. Thanks, everybody, for watching the show on JAKIB Media's YouTube channel and also 6abc.com. Have a great rest of the night, and we'll talk to you next Monday.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.